Welcome back. In recent decades, homeopathy has become one of the fastest growing forms of alternative medicine around the world. Europeans spend $800 million per year on herbal remedies, and India has 300,000 registered homeopaths. But if it's so popular, why has the medical and scientific world kept homeopathy out in the cold? And just how safe is alternative medicine? I'm joined now by Singh, co-author of Trick or Treatment, Alternative Medicine on Trial, and by Jayne Thomas, who is the chair of the Society of Homeopaths. Welcome to you both. Okay. We've heard so much over the years about the magic of the minimum dose and so on. What made you come out with such a negative judgment on it?
Well, my judgment's based on 200 research studies, clinical trials and so on, which investigate homeopathy and says, look, does this treatment work for a variety of diseases? And the bottom line, when you look at the whole mass of evidence, is that homeopathy just doesn't work. And if you're a scientist or a practicing doctor, you have to go on the evidence. And what you wouldn't want to do is to give a patient an ineffective treatment. And that's really what homeopathy is.
Right. Over to you.
Well, I disagree.
I'm not at all surprised, Jayne.
There is plenty of evidence to suggest that homeopathy is an effective treatment, and the evidence varies from patients saying that it works and having the benefits of it, through to clinical trials, randomised control studies and meta-analyses, all of which stack up to homeopathy actually does work. And that's why it's a growing market, because patients have benefited from it and they pass word of mouth, they tell other people that they've benefited from it, and the market is growing. They're very satisfied customers.
But he's talking about 200 tests and so on, which say it doesn't work. What are the tests that you can quote that prove it does work?
Well, there are 5 large meta-analyses that show that it does work, and these will include trials of perhaps 89 in one and 110 in another trial. These are trials of individual homeopathic treatments. The homeopathy performs very well when the treatment is individualised, when it's patient-centred.
But Jayne, you know there have been two trials, major trials on individualised homeopathic treatment, and it just doesn't work.
Which ones are those?
I can't quote you the authors, but I will do straight afterwards.
That's fair enough.
But it's really disingenuous. The Lancet, one of the most respected journals in the world, did the most recent and most detailed meta-analysis, which was by Singh, and you will have known that one. And that comes out with a very negative conclusion. And for years we've had therapies that don't work, bloodletting, arsenic, mercury, we've abandoned those.
What can you say about the ways in which homeopathy does help patients that other forms of medicine have failed to do?
Well, it relieves symptoms. We don't treat individual diseases as disease labels. Homeopathy works by treating people individually, and whatever spectrum of symptoms that they experience, that's what we treat. So if we all had headaches here, for example, we would probably give 3 different remedies, because it is individualised, it's a patient-centred approach. And so for me to say that homeopathy treats XYZ disease would not be correct or appropriate. For me to say that homeopathy treats the symptoms that may be related to a particular disease is a far more accurate picture of what homeopathy actually does.
But with these mega diseases that people worry about, I mean, cancer, AIDS and so on, does homeopathy have a role to play there?
Absolutely. Homeopathy has a role to play in all diseases that is experienced by human beings. It is about the individual symptoms and how that patient expresses those symptoms and how they experience them. And when we look at it in that way and we treat the patients holistically, patients find that they benefit from homeopathy.
And this is what worries me most, is that for colds and bruises, I don't really care if people want to turn to homeopathy for those conditions, they'll heal themselves in due course. But the danger is that people with serious conditions, HIV and cancer and so on, are being offered help by homeopaths when they really need to talk to their GPs and talk to their specialists and take genuine effective medicine. One of the ways I got interested in this was 2 years ago. I visited 10 homeopaths, or a student of mine did, and said, I need protection against malaria. Can you give me something instead of conventional treatment? Because she said they gave her side effects and so on. The real advice should have been, well, try a different anti-malarial drug. But 10 out of 10 homeopaths were willing to give her something homeopathic, which is completely unproven, untested, ineffective, and put her life at risk.
Yes.
Well, yes, I'd certainly like to respond to this, because as Britain's largest regulator of registered homeopaths, the Society of Homeopaths is very, very clear on the way that one should behave. And I think Simon well knows that out of those 10 homeopaths, only one was named as a potential society member, and on getting the transcripts of the programme, that person did not give inappropriate advice. And this is the key point. We want homeopathy to be properly regulated in this country.
Can it cure cancer? Or?
Well, I would never say that it cures any named disease, because we look at symptoms and we alleviate symptoms. It's not appropriate for us to say that we cure disease labels. It's not the way that homeopathy works. It works by individual symptoms, individualised treatments. It's a patient-centred approach, and it does work for many, many, many symptoms.
Again, I find it slightly offensive. I'm not a practicing doctor. My co-author was a practicing doctor and has been researching this for 15 years. But I think any conventional doctor will have a patient-centred approach. Any sensible, wise doctor will look at the patient in front of them and treat their symptoms and treat them as an individual and as a human. And to try and take that label and say, well, look, we're homeopaths, we're wonderful, it's just not true. And at the same time, to offer remedies which have not a jot of molecule in them that's an effective ingredient. So people are taking literally sugar tablets, and you know that for a fact because you're a chemist and you have a background in that. And then to say that it's, and to know that it's ineffective from the best possible trials, that's what worries me about this practice.
Is that true that the tablets that you prescribe are just sugar?
They're very highly diluted and succussed, and they follow a procedure to be made. It is true
you must say there are no molecules in most homeopathic remedies. There are active ingredients.
It is below Avogadro's number, that's what you want me to say, it is. But that doesn't mean to say that they're ineffective. There are numerous studies going on in conventional science at the moment which are investigating extremely high dilutions, water, memory, various other things. I'm not hanging my hat on any of those as an explanation for homeopathy for certain. But because we do not yet know how they work, doesn't mean that they don't work. Homeopathy works. Thousands and millions of patients know that it works, and they're happy to tell their family to go along and experience homeopathy for themselves because they find it a great benefit.
If, perish the thought, someone gets some terrible disease like cancer, do they stick, would you in that circumstance stick with the homeopathic remedies, or would you also seek out conventional ways?
I would absolutely encourage my patient to remain in dialogue with their GP or their consultant, whoever they're with, but I would be very happy to treat them alongside to see what I could do to alleviate their symptoms as much as possible.
Okay, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Very revealing indeed, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now, the Democratic nomination process, which crawls on and crawled on again this week. Voters in Pennsylvania didn't knock Hillary out with a defeat or a tiny victory, but nor did they hand her the double-digit win she wanted. Meanwhile, the battle between the two Democrats gets nastier and more personal. The New York Times, formerly a Hillary supporting paper, this week called on Mrs. Clinton to do the decent thing and end her negative attacks on Senator Obama. But what chance of that when they seem to be having an effect, some effect? I'm joined from Los Angeles now by Laura Schwartz, former Bill Clinton White House aide and a regular here, very happily that we are, that she is a regular. And what's your reaction to these figures? It wasn't double-digit, was it?
No, it wasn't. The figures are still in dispute at the end of this week, but it looks like it's between 8 and maybe 9.2 points that she actually won by. So it's not the double-digit lead that she wanted. She wanted the high double digits, 15, 20 points, but she didn't get it. So her campaign now is saying, oh, it was about 10. Well, that really leaves things with the status quo. It doesn't give her the bump that she needs for superdelegates, those independent delegates of the Democratic Party that may decide this vote, but it does allow her to go on to 2 weeks from now when Barack Obama and Hilary Clinton meet in Indiana and North Carolina. That's the next big contest, May 6th. So at least she's in it for another 2 weeks.
And this claim she's made of having the majority of the popular vote depends on dodgy calculations, doesn't it, on Florida, etc.
It does. It really is fuzzy math, very creative accounting, some would say. Right now, Barack Obama, before Pennsylvania, was ahead in the popular vote by 800,000. She was able to make up about maybe 170,000 votes, so now he'd only be ahead by about 600,000. But she is saying that once you count Florida, and you count Michigan, where her name was the only name on the ballot, She actually is ahead by 120,000 votes. Now, it's really fuzzy because in the state of Michigan, for example, there was a large group of uncommitted voters, which really are Barack Obama voters, but they get this math by counting all the states that don't matter because they broke the rules in the first place, as well as a state where her name was the only one on the ballot. They're really trying to reach for a reason to stay in this race. And right now it's going to be all about her creative math with the popular vote.
The negative campaigning that she's done, do you think it's won her votes or lost her prestige? Has been a plus or a minus?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. According to the exit polls out of Pennsylvania, it's hurt her and Barack Obama. By far, over 50% say that Hilary Clinton has gone negative. Only about 30% say that Barack Obama's gone negative. And for the most part, he's had to go negative just to defend himself against her negative attacks. But it's kind of hurt them both. It's also started to hurt the Democratic Party. The independent vote in America, those that are neither Republican or Democrat, are the ones that will decide this election. Independents are incredibly turned off by negativity. And that's why Hillary Clinton needs to tone that rhetoric down.
And one or two of Hillary's supporters have said irreverently that, in fact, if Mr. Obama does win the nomination, it would actually not be in Hillary's best interests if he won the race, because that would mean she couldn't run in 2012. She could have to wait till 2016. Is there anything in that?
There actually is. And now, again, as you said, I worked at the White House for 8 years. I have tremendous respect for the president and former First Lady Senator Clinton. But I have been very disappointed by the negativity and almost the placing of Clinton politics or the Clinton party above the Democratic Party. I think she's entering, honestly, this phase of I told you so. If she can make Barack Obama damaged and unelectable, and he still gets the nomination because mathematically, as we talked about, it pretty much is his, she can make sure that he doesn't win in the fall. So she can stand in the Senate and say, hey, I told you so. Should have voted for me. I would have won. And then she can set herself up for another run in 2012. And a lot of people, again, are really turned off by that, and that's where they see her going with all this negativity and bullying, really.
Thank you very much, as ever, Laura. It's great to have you with us. We'll talk again in a week or two more, yes?
I look forward to it. Lots going on.
Absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed, Laura. But enough of negativity. Here's a positive invitation to join us at the same time next week. Until then, top of the day.